A woman is taking a nap, but a man is not her true husband. As soon as the doorknob is about to turn, if they are caught cheating, both of them may be ruined. Unexpectedly, the doorknob hesitated for a moment and then loosened in the opposite direction, avoiding a disaster. The two of them finally breathed a sigh of relief. Who would have thought that just after seeing off his lover, GD saw the gift from his husband? Just as he secretly felt grateful for his seamless appearance and lamented that this bookworm had changed, the maid told him that this was the extreme hell her husband had just left behind. Feeling betrayed, quickly call your lover to discuss countermeasures. Just as the phone rang, my husband Walter found him. Walter is a bacterial expert who said he wants to take GD to Meitan Prefecture in Guangxi to support the raging cholera epidemic there. The medical technology from 1925 was like dying there. Geely refused to accompany him at all, but in the blink of an eye, Walter became resolute. Fine.
Then I shall file my petition for divorce tomorrow. I'm afraid that you have thought me a bigger fool than I am.
Originally, Walter knew everything, so there's nothing to hide. Find your mistress Charlie in the polar region and make him fulfill his promise to divorce and marry her. But naive, she wouldn't have thought that all the sweet words under passion were all lies. Also rich.
He doesn't want your money. Agree to let me divorce him if Dorothy will agree to divorce you.
Can't only think of ourselves. I know, Dorothy, nothing in the world will induce her to divorce me. Idea of the importance of my station here. If I was...
Understood. Feeling deceived, Emperor Ji turned around and left disheartened, agreeing to accompany Walter to Meitan Prefecture. As soon as he got on the road, Walter began to punish his wife with cold violence. The journey, which could have been reached by water in 3 days, was extended by Walter's walk to half a month. Along the way, the pampered polar regions were fed up with the heat and mosquito bites. Although he loved and hated his wife in his heart, going to save the people in dire straits was his true and noble sense of mission. And the result of the story also brought tears to the audience, causing 1.6 million people to give a high score of 8.3. The polar region was originally the daughter of a wealthy London family, indulging in stubbornness and hoping for perfect love, but accidentally became an elderly saint. The most talked about by her family every day is urging her to get married, and then a man who changed her life appeared. Bacteriologist Walter fell in love with him at first sight and passionately proposed to him on a date the next day. GD didn't rush to agree, but as soon as he returned home, he heard his mother's disappointment with him.
Very well for herself as my Doris. At least one of them's made a success. No, gave up on Kitty ages ago.
No longer enduring his mother's nagging, he reluctantly agreed to Walter's proposal, and the two of them came to Shanghai. A 3-bedroom, 1 living room house may not be comparable to a luxury mansion in London, but it excels in its cleanliness and freedom of mind and body. However, soon he felt the logarithm of his soul, and Walter was completely focused on research, which could not satisfy his longing for love. Some things still require him to wave his hand, so that Walter can understand how to do them for fun. Even when bored and trying to pass the time, Walter only plays simple poker with him. Although Walter's emotional intelligence is not high, he has a deep affection for the polar regions. Knowing that his wife likes to dance, he falls in love with her and invites him to go see a play. Here, they met the witty and humorous Charlie. Many people cannot understand the profound meaning of Peking opera, but in Charlie's vivid description, a young girl who yearns for love but is tricked by fate appears before the eyes of Emperor Ji. Isn't this the description of herself? Compared to the unfazed Walter, perhaps the understanding Charlie is the man who can bring himself happiness. So under Charlie's sweet words of attack, the two of them had an affair. However, after discovering it, Walter did not expose it on the spot. Instead, he decided to take Geely to disaster relief and treat cholera. Walter's decision seemed like a cowardly escape, but when Geely found out the reason, he was already regretful. After arriving at Meitan Mansion, they lived in a house where people had died before, and there was a terrifying doll on the bed.
This can be your room.
Faced with Walter's indifference, he said he wouldn't get the cholera vaccine. Unexpectedly, Walter also said he didn't hit. In the grudges of their marital relationship, the two of them tacitly chose to self-harm and vent their emotions. The next morning, taking advantage of Walter's investigation outside, we endured the extremely low fear of being infected with cholera at any time, and then remembered the tea leaves that were used to make pancakes for him. He quietly found his neighbor Wei to pause and asked him to help bring a message to Charlie, so that he could escape this ghost place on his own. Unexpectedly, Wei paused and said that he also knew Charlie. During the casual conversation, he even revealed Charlie's sexual history, which made him feel even more peculiar. Charlie's wife never complained and even publicly said that her husband was attracted to second-rate women. GD finally realized that he was just one of Charlie's many flowers. GD's innocence was once again shattered by reality. When she returned, she tore up the letter in her hand, tore off the necklace Charlie had given her, and locked it in a drawer. At this moment, the helpless despair filled his entire life. The only thing that can give her a sense of security at this moment is her husband who has been betrayed by her. But Walter was either reading a book or reading the floor, but he just didn't want to take another look at her. When he saw her suicidal eating salad, "You looking to kill yourself?" Walter ate it without hesitation and anger. In order to arouse her husband's concern, Emperor G even wanted to touch the dead body, but fortunately, he was pulled back by the kind-hearted Wei. In the evening, for the first time, Walter took the initiative to talk to his wife and said that the orphanage director wanted to see him. After finishing speaking, Walter fell into the bathtub. It turned out that Walter was drunk, and only in the numbness of alcohol did he have the courage to say a few more words to his beloved wife. The next day, the polar region arrived at the orphanage. The dean showed him the children's suffering and also showed him the patients who had fallen due to cholera. He had been immersed in a luxurious life, but at this moment, his heart was so suppressed that he couldn't breathe. However, the dean also told him that Dr. Walter has helped many people here, and he loves babies the most and spends the most time in the nursery. At this point, the polar region changed its view of Walter. Turns out that husband who couldn't understand his charm was far more noble and brave than he had imagined.
You alright?
Yes. It's nothing.
After cognitive changes, Giddy showed more concern for Walter. Unable to wait for Walter to eat with him, he took the food to Walter's studio, only to find that Walter was tired and lying on the table asleep. Although he was cautious, he still woke up Walter. He wanted to talk to Walter about their relationship and how they would get along in the future, but Walter didn't want to say a word more. He chased after him in the extreme, only getting Walter's cold and indifferent back after being injured.
I despise myself for allowing myself to love you once.
The next day, Walter found the reason for the continuous eradication of the chaos. Originally, the villagers thought this was a feng shui treasure trove and buried all the bodies by the river, unaware that it happened to pollute the water source of the entire town. In a state of anxiety, he not only needs to find a way to migrate these facts, but also needs to find a clean water source. At the same time, GD also came to the orphanage to help. Although the baby in his hand made him feel at a loss, he suddenly discovered the reason for the existence of life. After the piano teacher died of illness, he took over the responsibility of being a music teacher, bringing joy to human suffering and allowing him to feel a new life. Compared to the elusive longing in the heart, perhaps this is the meaning of life. Coincidentally, Walter saw his wife's change, and a gentle piece of music reminded him of the scene of being released from prison. The suppressed emotions quietly sprouted up. Subsequently, the gunpowder smell of their strained relationship gradually dissipated, and instead, there was a candlelight-like warmth. So the two had their first romantic conversation, and in the face of the mistake made by polar self-deprecation, Walter smiled foolishly. After being washed away, they realized that searching for each other's missing character was a foolish consolation, and Emperor G also felt Walter's deep love. Under the fierce anger of Walter, he had already seen through Charlie's nature. But facing betrayal is what he wants to do most, but how to protect his wife from more harm? Why don't you
Break down that door. You knew I was there with Charlie. Please try to thrash him.
It wasn't worth it. Maybe I'm just too proud to fight.
I don't know about that.
The next day, at Walter's suggestion, the military began to forcibly remove the bodies from villagers' homes and park them for 7 days according to customs. The confusion of the people makes them disregard everything. In response to these foreign conspirators, who happened to be on the street, he stumbled and fled into a temple. Fortunately, Walter arrived in time and saved him unscathed. As night fell, the two remained silent and loyal, chasing their way home. When love suddenly rose, even the shadows of each other wanted to come forward and embrace each other. The two of them couldn't help but feel emotions, and finally welcomed the reunion of their feelings. The next day, the two of them boarded the bamboo method and for the first time, they experienced the beauty of nature in pure love. There will always be a meeting, where the mountains and rivers will snuggle together. There will always be a moment when the heart beats, making the ends of the world seem so close. They head upstream, and a huge water wheel catches their eyes. This is the solution that Walter has to solve for the water source. This is still the inspiration found from the windmill in the hands of the polar regions, to divert clean water from the upstream to the downstream. Walter took the polar region to visit his drinking water pipes made of bamboo and patiently explained their usefulness to him. They strolled in the fields together, taking boats to traverse the green mountains and waters. Katie's eyes were filled with tenderness and admiration, just like the way Walter used to look at him. Just when all the beauty came unexpectedly, the polar region suddenly fainted. When he woke up, the Deans thought he was by his side. He thought he had cholera, but the Deans congratulated her on being pregnant.
Think how happy your husband will be.
Now the polar region cannot be happier anymore. Walter found him as soon as he heard the news and looked into the tearful eyes of the polar region. It was then that he suddenly realized that this joy did not seem to belong to him.
Am I the father?
I honestly don't know. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter now.
Doesn't. Emperor G thought his mistake would make him lose Walter again, but he didn't expect Walter to hug him. Compared to losing a deeply loved one, he is more willing to embrace everything in the polar region. Just as clean drinking water was successfully introduced into the town and everything was developing in a positive direction, an unexpected situation occurred again. Villagers fleeing from downstream disasters have flooded into the town, and the finally controlled epidemic is once again raging. Walter was busy treating patients outside, while Emperor G was taking care of the helpless orphan. Looking at his wife who was sleeping with the orphan, Walter did not wake him up, but kissed him affectionately on the forehead before turning around and dedicating himself to his mission. Unexpectedly, in the evening, Wei paused and hurriedly found the polar region. Walter was infected with cholera, and the polar region immediately rushed to the refugee camp outside the city. At this time, Walter had already collapsed on the bed, to the point of spitting dry water. The polar region had driven everyone out, leaving only himself to take care of Walter. However, they not only lack doctors, but also life-saving drugs. Walter's life is coming to an end, and the only thing he can't rest assured of is his beloved wife in front of him.
There's nothing to forgive.
In this regard, bringing his wife here to punish is the most regrettable thing for Walter. If we have to choose death, we can remember our loved ones. GD hopes that the one who dies is himself. Sorrow is greater than death of heart. GD found way to pause and help. He followed Walter's mission to treat cholera and hastily buried him, just like those innocent people who died, without even seeing a tombstone. The nanny was tidying up Walter's belongings when he rushed up from the pole to stop him. He trembled and put the things back in place. Only Walter, who works so hard, feels like he's still by his side. When longing overturned all the beautiful memories, Dee cried out in pain. The most sincere love will always encounter the coldest ending, making people feel waves of regret. Years later, in the polar regions of London, he brought his son to a flower shop where Walter proposed to him. As soon as they came out, they met Charlie and met again. In Giddy's eyes, there was only a calm and straightforward expression after washing Qianhua. Charlie said he wanted to write a letter to him, implying that he would continue his relationship, but there was no ripple in Giddy's heart.
Kitty, I'm going to be in London for the next 3 weeks. Perhaps we could...
Goodbye, Mr. Townsend.
Little Walter is a bit curious about who the man is.
Who's that, Mummy?
No one.
Important, darling. Couples who enter the hall of marriage may not necessarily be people who know and love each other, but those who know and love each other must be people who spend their lives together. Marriage can generate emotions, but love may not necessarily lead to marriage. When I have seen the clearest eyes in the world, met the purest soul, and experienced the most beautiful life, what else is considered in my eyes? To avoid missing out on more exciting movies, please click subscribe.